Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bob McGaughey. I will be your host along with Todd Myers and Randy Simmons this afternoon for SOLIDWORKS Connected versus SOLIDWORKS Connector. So with that being said, let's go ahead and so um, so our goal today is to share with you some differences between SOLIDWORKS Connected and SOLIDWORKS Connector. But the first thing we have to ask is why the cloud? So with that being said, I mean, it's a one secure location to connect all of our different applications, all of our different files, and you're going to have one subscription with no IT, no servers required. You don't have a VPN requirement as well, which is very nice. Many times the current state of the situations that we're all in, many of us have to work from home, and IT isn't a big fan of operating VPNs at the moment. So if we can reduce some of that on the IT load, that's very helpful. So
the other nice thing, Bob, is that this keeps everyone connected in the organization, right? So they're all using the same interface, which is customizable. So each user can customize it to their own needs, but you're interacting in that collaborative space where you can access the same data, share data with each other. And we'll look at some of those ways that can happen throughout this presentation.
Exactly.
We also have a lot of other presentations that we've done this month, as well as other ones out there on CATI's YouTube channel to sell you on benefits of the 3D Experience platform. But like we said, today we're here to show you the differences in the ways that you can connect with the standard traditional desktop SolidWorks versus the 3D Experience SolidWorks.
Yeah, and more to lead into how you would interface in either scenario. We just want to break down what that 3D Experience platform is. So I'm willing to bet that everyone on this call, on this meeting, has used a platform of some sort, whether it's Google Docs or Google Pictures, those kind of things for sharing data that way. Amazon for just, buying, tracking your orders and streaming video. All of these things are different types of platform, and they all run in the cloud, just like 3D Experience SolidWorks. And some of these are even considered collaborative platforms, like the Google Docs, for example.
And one of the ways, of course, that the 3D Experience platform gets your company connected is by providing the tools to bring everybody in the whole product development process together. It is a web-based system of apps to allow you to collaborate, manage, and design anywhere, anytime, on any device with the X apps. It was built from the ground up with design in mind. There are design communities to allow users to collaborate on projects and share ideas and always be up to date. There are project management tools to allow users to streamline your design process with tasks to keep people on target. If you are already using SolidWorks today on the desktop, there are additional tools that will allow you to work from anywhere on any device through the convenience of a web browser. If you do not already have SolidWorks, then we are going to show you solutions for that as well today. And you'll have access to powerful simulation tools on the cloud that leverage cloud computing through the Simulia apps. There's a very tight integration with the desktop SolidWorks tool, which allows you to bring work done in the cloud back into desktop and vice versa. And then that, of course, means you can still take advantage of all the tools inside of SolidWorks today, locally installed simulation tools, CAM tools, inspection, and many other things like that.
So as we get into more of how you interact with the collaborative spaces in the cloud, we just want to talk about some of the basic reasons why you might want this product. Whether you're using the connector version with a perpetual license of SolidWorks, or whether you're considering the 3D Experience SolidWorks products. And that is because you have collaborative interactions. There's different roles with different apps that allow you to collaborate and either consume or review data that's created by the team. And then there are other apps and roles that are for people that create data. So
yeah, it's a lot more than just storing your data in the cloud.
Right. And it's not just for CAD users. So this is supposed to, this is a way to connect everyone in the organization, or as many people as you want in the organization, not just the CAD folks. So people who would need to like review data would have something like this business innovator role. Everyone that's on the cloud would need this role. This is like the building block, the foundation of interacting in the cloud. This allows you to connect to the data. You have a rudimentary way of sharing data across the organization. And it enables collaboration using things like think of it like a Facebook page where you have a project and it has its own Facebook page and people are interacting with it with goals and sharing images of the development, creating surveys or interacting with the customer and getting feedback, doing polls like where should we go with this design or what do you think about this? So we'll see some of those tools as we get into this. It also allows you to track things like RSS feeds, keep tabs on where the market's headed and things like that.
So tools that you might be familiar with would be like Slack and Trello, those sorts of things. Is another way to look at those tools that are in the Collaborative Business Innovator.
Right. And the next level up from that, this is for the content creators. This is called Collaborative Industry Innovator role. So the base foundation is Collaborative Business Innovator. The next step up here, Collaborative Industry Innovator. This is required for anyone that wants to connect SOLIDWORKS to the cloud. This allows you to create a type of vault for your data, which is called a collaborative space. This is your PLM, your lifecycle management in the cloud. So your product data management, you do not have to have your own server, right? All that data is stored in the cloud securely. You don't have to have any IT overhead. This is all pretty much plug and play. It's configurable, but it's not really customizable as far as the tools in that product lifecycle management suite. And it is accessible anywhere on any device. So we'll talk about what's required to run SolidWorks or 3D Experience SolidWorks as we go, but the data itself is accessible on your phone, on a tablet, on a Chromebook, or on your desktop or laptop.
And as we go through this, you're going to notice that we talk about roles. That's how you buy things on the platform. So when you have a particular job or role that you have in your company or your day-to-day tasks, that is considered to be a role on the platform. That role contains usually a bundling of applications. So just like Collaborative Industry Innovator, you see 5 icons there. We actually get 20 different applications just with Collaborative Business Innovator. Anything from an e-drawings like tool called 3D Play to the ability to do check-in, check-out, to doing collaborative tasks, to doing issue management, doing Gantt charts, comparing 3D models, even giving you product check-in and check-out information inside of Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and Word is integrated into this tool.
Mm-hmm. It also allows you to track changes as well as issues. So the whole product lifecycle management can be managed through this suite of applications called the Collaborative Industry Innovator role.
Yeah, so how do you get this? How do you get access to these tools? And there's basically 2 main ways to get your SolidWorks seats, your SolidWorks users connected to the platform. You can go with traditional desktop SolidWorks and then add on the SolidWorks connector. And then, of course, you would need the Business Innovator and Industry Innovator that we just talked about. Or you can purchase seats of 3D Experience SolidWorks. And we're going to talk about what each of these includes in detail in just a minute. The important thing to remember here, a lot of people hear 3D Experience SolidWorks or SolidWorks in the cloud. None of these run in the cloud. It is still traditional desktop SolidWorks installed on your local machine in either situation. Just all of the other things we talked about doing with the data is done in the cloud. So let's take a look here at the first one we're going to look at is the way to get connected if you already own seats of SolidWorks desktop perpetual seats, or if you're wanting to purchase new seats. Let's look at this first situation or first way to get connected.
Right. So what Randy outlined there for you is that with a perpetual license of SolidWorks, it would be required to have these 3 roles that you would purchase on the right of the SOLIDWORKS icon there. There's a collaborative business innovator, collaborative industry innovator, and collaborative designer for SOLIDWORKS. But those are just part of an enormous suite of roles that are available to you. This shows pretty much the hierarchy of how many of these, and these are just some of the most popular roles that we offer, how these are sorted. So you see at the bottom there, there's the collaborative business innovator. Above that is the collaborative industry innovator. And then there are suites of roles among all these different types of products. And these are all part of different brands that Dassault Systems offers. So there's the SOLIDWORKS brand, there's the CATIA brand, there's Simulia, Innovia, and things like that. And these roles are made up of different applications that branch out from each of those potential market products that Dassault offers. What you would need, again, for connecting your perpetual licenses of SOLIDWORKS to the cloud are these apps, or these roles rather: collaborative business innovator, collaborative industry innovator, and combined, those are about 40 applications that come with those 2 at the bottom.
And once again, we can't stress this enough. This is if you currently have SOLIDWORKS licenses, be that whatever licensing type that you have, and you want to connect to the cloud.
Right. And the collaborative designer for SOLIDWORKS role highlighted in the upper left, that is, it's a single app role. It's basically running in the background. That is what allows you to connect SOLIDWORKS and a SOLIDWORKS session to your data in the cloud. It also allows you to access the different applications from within SOLIDWORKS without having to go to a browser. So we'll show you some of that functionality as we get into some of the videos ahead.
And that's the tool we commonly just call SOLIDWORKS Connector.
Right. So then I think we'll break it into the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS options here.
Yep.
Yeah, and so
go ahead, Todd.
Yeah. So the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, it is virtually identical to the perpetual SOLIDWORKS licenses that you may buy, with the core feature creation functionality. It still installs on your computer. You still are required to have a computer that meets the minimum requirements of running SOLIDWORKS perpetual licenses. And it gives you access to those building block roles that we were mentioning earlier, like collaborative business innovator, collaborative industry innovator. And each of the offerings offers you even more apps than those minimal roles that you would need to purchase.
Right. And because of the roles that we highlighted already that you could buy to add on to your existing SOLIDWORKS, this is mainly targeted for new customers who do not have SOLIDWORKS. It's a very low cost of entry. You're not really making a purchase upfront like you would with a perpetual seat of SOLIDWORKS. It is a subscription service model, which we'll talk about a little bit later what that is. So very low cost of entry. The data management, TLM services is included. And then some of the 3D Experience roles and apps are included, plus you get access to all the others. There is a trade-in program for existing SOLIDWORKS customers if people want to abandon their perpetual desktop seats, especially if they're old or expired or not on maintenance anymore, and get up to date with the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS seats.
So when we talk about 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, currently we have 3 different offerings available to you. We have 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS Standard, 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS Professional, and 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS Premium. Now, these include the different roles that you see here. So 3D Creator includes an app called XDesign. 3D Sculptor includes a tool called XShape. And 3D SOLIDWORKS Simulation Designer includes the same level of simulation that you would get with SOLIDWORKS Premium. So you would get assembly motion and static simulation on parts and assemblies.
Right, and whereas we showed with the traditional desktop SOLIDWORKS, if you wanted to get it connected, you'd have to purchase the Industry Innovator and Business Innovator. Those are included with each one of these offers down there at the bottom.
And if you did want to add the 3D Creator, 3D Sculptor, and additional apps, those would also be purchased, where in these packages, they are also included at the different levels. You'll also see that at 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS Professional and Premium, you're getting 3D Experience Visualize Professional at both levels. So if you're familiar with the Visualize product, when you buy a perpetual license of SOLIDWORKS at the professional level, you get Visualize Standard. Here, you're getting Visualize Professional at both the professional and premium tiers of the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS product.
And there are also other rendering tools on the platform that we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm. And like 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, the 3D Experience Visualize, that does also run on your local machine. That is not all cloud computing. The product that Bob has just referenced is a computing in the cloud renderer.
So this slide is just showing the differences in licensing. The most flexible is going to be traditional desktop SOLIDWORKS with adding on the other three tools to connect to the cloud. Because you'll get the perpetual license, we have the options for standalone or floating licenses, as you hopefully know you can do to have a network license. And then with traditional SOLIDWORKS, you have the optional yearly subscription for your updates, tech support, and so on.
So with the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, the licensing is it's a SaaS-based license, and it is a named user. So once an administrator for your tenant divvies that license out to a named user on the platform, it is to that user for at least the first 30 days of their use. After that, that license can be reassigned to another user, and then a 30-day clock will begin after that first assignment. It's usually a question that pops up, seems to be every time.
Yeah, go back one slide real quick, Todd.
Sure.
And then, I mean, as far as pricing and costs, I mean, desktop SOLIDWORKS plus the SOLIDWORKS connectors and the other two apps there, if you're new, that's going to be initially more expensive because you're having to buy the perpetual seats of SOLIDWORKS on top of those other things. To where 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS would be initially cheaper, at least for the first 3 years, as it being a rental or a software as a service. Most likely anybody with existing SOLIDWORKS desktop perpetual licenses who have those already would probably go with option 1, the connector on the left. New customers with no existing SOLIDWORKS, you'd need to decide which option is better for you, to have a perpetual seat of software and the additional products, or to go with a software as a service. Option 2 is approximately the same in year-to-year costs as option 1. However, there would be none of the initial purchase costs with the option number 1 of buying those SOLIDWORKS licenses. Okay.
Great.
So what do you lose, right, by going with the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS? We mentioned that it's a full functioning seat of SOLIDWORKS. However, there are a few differences. Obviously, with desktop SOLIDWORKS on the left, you get all the functionality of SOLIDWORKS, and then you're adding on these products, so all the functionality of the 3D Experience tools. One of the nice things that some people will need with that option is the choice of what version of SOLIDWORKS to use. We need to stay on 2019 because of a customer that we work with that needs that, or whatever. You don't have to upgrade. However, with the 3D Experience products and connecting to the cloud, you do need to stay on one of the last 3 releases. So with 2021 of SOLIDWORKS just coming out, you do need to stay on 2021, 2020, or 2019 as of now to even be able to connect.
So with the 3D Experience side of things, you're always going to be on the latest and greatest version of SOLIDWORKS that the platform supports. So if today you installed 2020 SOLIDWORKS, and then when the next functional delivery comes out and they support 2021 SOLIDWORKS, you would have to automatically update to 2021. So the side effect to that is you don't get to determine when that update happens. It just happens. So that is one thing.
That can be a great thing, or that could maybe not be a great thing for you. Yeah.
Correct. So, and the other thing is, I mean, you can see there, we actually wrote it twice, no toolbox, no toolbox. I blame me. I apologize. I think I just forgot to delete one, but I think subliminally, I was like,
it's important to impress. It's important to impress that to people.
I like toolbox. Okay. The other thing is no API support for third-party applications. So if you're currently using tools like DriveWorks or say like Power Surfacing or something that's a SOLIDWORKS add-in, that is not supported for the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, because when you go to save files, you're actually saving to the platform. You're not saving those files locally. So that is a big thing there.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first thing too, Bob.
Yep.
Sorry, Randy?
The very first thing on that list, have to stay connected to the internet.
Yes. You have to stay connected. Your local install is going to be checking this with the server every 5 minutes to make sure that you have a connection and that you're the rightful user of that license, that named user license. After about 20 minutes, if it cannot establish a connection, then your session is going to terminate. You can still save your data. You can back up your data or have a place where your data is backed up until that connection is reestablished. So you won't lose your work. You just won't be able to save it up to the cloud until you get that connection back.
Also, now, I guess we should talk about how that's actually working behind the scenes. For those of us who aren't experienced with PDM, the way SOLIDWORKS PDM Professional works is when we open a file from the server, it's not going across the server anymore. It makes a local copy of that so we can work on it and only save the changes back to the server. The same thing happens here with 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS. When we open the data the first time from the platform, it pulls that data down, but it's cached locally behind the scenes for us. So as we're working, we don't have to have a humongous pipe to go to the internet to constantly be pushing data down and back. So as soon as you get the file open, it's open, it's local cache, and then when you have to save a change, the only thing that's being sent back to the platform is actually what got changed.
Right, and this allows multiple users to be working on different parts of, let's say, the same assembly. You can reserve, or if you guys are familiar with the PDM products, you can check out or reserve, take ownership of certain files. That allows that person to work and make changes to the file. They make an update. You'll get a notification in your task pane as you're working in SOLIDWORKS that you may have a version that's not currently up to date. So you can refresh from the server, or you can just ignore that until you want to refresh all the parts that are being reworked, and then have all that refresh done at a certain time of the day.
So I did have a question pop over. How does PDM work with the platform? Do we just connect our SOLIDWORKS PDM to it? Is the question?
Yes. So you do not connect PDM to the platform. This is a completely separate product with different types of functionality. I mean, the same type of workflows, but there's no way to actually migrate your data from your local PDM up to the cloud. Currently, yeah. So
hopefully we'll see something in the future, but you know what? At SOLIDWORKS, we don't talk about futures much.
Right. So one other thing I wanted to talk about, a benefit of 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, is that while it still requires you to install it on a computer that meets the system requirements of SOLIDWORKS, you can install it on as many systems as you want. And since the license is a named user license, when you terminate your session on computer A, you can go start up a session on computer B without having to transfer licenses. So you can pretty much work anywhere at any time as long as that system is able to run SOLIDWORKS. You just have to terminate your last session before you move on.
Yep. This next slide is just listing some of the other functional differences. We're not going to go through all these. I mean, maybe one of the important ones here is all files have to be initially saved up to the platform. You're not really saving locally. However, you can export and save locally after the files have been put up to the platform. The rest of these are just some minor differences.
Yeah, well, I guess one other one that might be important for folks is that there's no publish to eDrawings or export to eDrawings. There are different products in the cloud that replace that functionality that Bob had mentioned earlier. 3D Play is for creating review documents or what am I trying to say? Publish just review documents of your work. So,
I mean, it's very much a lot of the functionality that we would know and love inside of eDrawings is just a web browser based version of that.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to auto explode things, do markups, do moves, do measurements, it's all there. So,
and this is a list of add-ins that are not supported. So CircuitWorks, PhotoView 360, you have Visualize that would replace that at the Pro and Premium level. There's also, again, that 3D Render app that you could purchase that runs in the cloud. A couple other big ones, inspection, and we talked about Toolbox earlier.
So this is now as of October 29th, 2020, with functional delivery number 2 for 2021X. We can't say that anybody watching this video in the future, a lot of these may have been already knocked off the list, but this is currently the list of things that we do not support.
Yeah, and so, if any of these add-ins are important to you, then it doesn't mean you can't get connected to the 3D Experience platform. It just means that the option 1 of going with your traditional desktop SOLIDWORks and the 3D Experience products would be the way to go versus the 3D Experience SOLIDWORks.
Okay, so here's just some diagrams of some of the differences from the user interface of 3D Experience SOLIDWORks versus traditional perpetual licenses. You'll still have a quick access toolbar, and we'll show some of this functionality in some videos here next. But when you go to open a document, you're opening documents from the web, so it brings up basically a browser to search and find the documents that you want to open from the web. Now, these might be things that you've already pulled down into your local cache, or the things that you want to bring down new. You can get previews of them. You can sort by thumbnails and lists and things like that, and you can type the names to search. You also will see in the upper right that you have a login profile. So it'll have your name up there in a little balloon, your initials anyway. It will also tell you what collaborative space that you're working in or linked to. So the collaborative space, again, is a vault. That's where it's going to be storing and controlling your data. You can have many of those. You can search across those collaborative spaces, no matter which one that it says you're working in. So cross collaborative spaces for different file types, you can search that way. You also have, go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, another way to look at collaborative spaces is like a bucket that you have access to. So when I grant you access to the platform, I create a collaborative space for you as the administrator. And then when you go do the search, it shows up all the data that's in your buckets. Now, if, say, Todd, for example, is not part of my collaborative space, when he does a search, he doesn't see that data. So you can have a collaborative space that has Todd, Randy, and I all a part of it, so we can collaborate together in that one space, or we can have our own private spaces for research and development or things that are on particular projects. That way, when vendors log in or our customers log into the 3D Experience platform, they can see the data that's only pertinent to them.
Mm-hmm. For most organizations, they just have a single collaborative space and everyone's working in there. So everyone has access to all the files available. But what Bob was describing is a great option for people that have, or for organizations that have different teams and who are doing the things that Bob described, like doing some conceptualization where they don't want necessarily to have that be visible to the rest of the team. You're going to notice also if there are any PDM users or people just familiar with using things like the design library, there is a task pane option on the right there for your PLM services, your 3D experience access directly from SolidWorks. So you see that you have a My Session. You can search also up in that search window for files on the platform. You've got a compass there to the left of where it says My Session. That compass grants you access to the different apps that you've been granted. So you can search things like what tasks you have currently assigned to you, or you can click on that to fire up a browser and go directly to a certain app that you want to use.
This is just another user interface difference is the file pull-down menu is going to have some differences. Open, of course, means opening from the platform. And then there's also an open from to be able to open from your local hard drive. And a few other differences here that you can see just in the file menu.
All right, so the next group of slides that we have are some clips of some videos of some traditional, well, not traditional, some of the new workflows that would replace what you normally do in SolidWorks if you were to go the 3D experience route. So we're going to show firing up SolidWorks, which is done through a browser. So you can see here, this is from the browser view, just going to the compass and then clicking on the SolidWorks connected. That's the app that's granted to you when you purchase 3D Experience SolidWorks. That's going to fire up from the web. Now you can create a desktop icon for that, so you don't necessarily have to be in a browser to do that, but it is going through the internet to I guess, affirm that you are the one that is licensed to use that app, and that's going to fire up SolidWorks in the background.
Just launched from a browser, not running in the browser. Correct.
Correct. Now, this next slide is just showing connected open up, and you see the welcome window. You still get that. You could create files from there, but this is the open window with the browser. So you can search by a list. You can type in a word, a keyword to pull up files that would include that. You can search the metadata. You can search by thumbnails or list or any kind of option there. Then you've got the access to the different, let's say, the metadata that might be embedded in it, custom properties that came over from SolidWorks. You can then also check a preview of that file just to make sure that it's the one that you want to use before you bring it into SolidWorks. You also can choose between, the different types of, I guess, opening styles. You could do lightweight, large design review, or resolved. And so here, I just chose resolved. That's going to bring in all of the components. If they're not currently in my working directory, they're going to download and populate my working directory at that time. If I had opened this up in lightweight, the only thing you would see at the very top of your My Session pane of the task pane would be the Modo knee. All the other components below that would come in lightweight, and so you're not going to see those. Now, you'd still see them in the feature manager tree for that assembly. So if you just went up to the top left and right-clicked on Modo knee and said resolve, set lightweight to resolved, then it is going to bring in all of the other components beneath that in your task pane and give you access to those. You see in My Session, it's the names of all of the files, and it shows you a status. And at the top two, it says, the local copy may have been changed, or it could be that the copy on the server has updated since I opened it. And then you can take ownership of it. You can reserve it for some work that you're doing or release it. And it shows you a lot more information there. We'll show you that expanded here in a second.
Yeah, next we're just going to show more detail of the task pane here. There are many other columns. You can customize which columns are hidden and shown. You can rearrange those columns. And then we want to show, like Todd mentioned earlier, that you can use that compass to access all of the apps from right inside of SolidWorks. You do not have to go out to a web browser Here we're accessing my collaborative tasks and seeing what's been assigned to me right from inside of SOLIDWORks. Users will decide whether they like using the inside SOLIDWORks interface or the web browser interface to do these things.
Now, this next workflow is just showing open from. This is what you would do with legacy SOLIDWORKS data if you switched from a traditional perpetual license to 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS. You would navigate to that location and you would open it, and then it's going to ask you, do you want to save it now to the cloud for full functionality or decide later? So what would happen, decide later, just allows you to make some final touches to your design before you then upload it to the cloud. You can see on the right, it has a status that's saying it's a new file and that is not on the cloud currently. Now, this next slide, we're going to see that when we go up here, we can right click on these files and save them up to the cloud directly. And you have the option to save or save with options. Now, the nice thing about save with options is when you're working in the cloud and looking for files, you search often for those files. Well, you can attach these to a bookmark directly upon uploading them. So with what's called the bookmark editor, you can create little bookmarks, which kind of replicates our file folder structure on a local C drive, that kind of functionality. It just groups all the components together where they're faster at finding them and accessing them.
Versus having to search for each one.
So this is just sending
this is when it's saving the files up to the cloud. During that process, and because of, like Bob said, with the local cache, that's really the only time there's internet traffic.
And then here you'll see this is where you can reserve and unreserve those files to take ownership or release ownership of it. When you go to release, not release ownership, but to unreserve the files, you can see at the very top there that I now have a read-only copy, which means that I'm not going to be making changes that get saved up to the cloud unless I do take ownership of it, unless I do reserve that file again.
So earlier we mentioned that there are some really nice cloud apps that are included with these 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS bundles, 3D Sculptor and 3D Creator. Let's take a look at those tools and see what those can provide for us.
Yeah, so 3D Sculptor is a role that contains this X-shape app. Now, this is for creating subdivision modeling models. This allows you to use what's similar to like a digital clay. You're using subdivided models where you can push and pull on the faces and the vertices and the edges. And it converts these surfaces to NURBS, and these can be brought into XDesign or into SOLIDWORKS to further your design. So it's a lot faster than working with traditional surface modeling tools. You can just get a real intuitive push-pull feel to how you create these shapes.
Now, Todd and I have both used these subdivision type modeling tools before in the past, and they're really nice, but one of the problems was the resultant file was usually an STL mesh file, which wasn't very usable for us as designers inside of SOLIDWORKS or other CAD tools. So here, what it's actually doing is giving us CAD models immediately that we can export and take right into SOLIDWORKS and split and add ribs and reinforcement bosses and screw holes and actually make a real model out of it. So this is a pretty amazing tool.
Yeah, definitely functionality that's not available in traditional SOLIDWORKS. That app is meant to complement existing SOLIDWORKS. Another one of the X apps that comes in some of the bundles or can be purchased separately is the X Design tool. And you may feel like, well, if I've got SOLIDWORKS, why do I need that? I can do extrusions and cuts and things like that in my SOLIDWORKS. And that's true, but there may be other people in your organization, maybe people on the shop floor or other designers that don't need access to a full seat of SOLIDWORKS, just need to quickly design some fixtures or parts without consuming a license of SOLIDWORKS. Plus, all of these X apps, the X Shape one and this X Design one, run on the cloud and in the cloud. So through a web browser, you don't need to install anything. So they can be run on a tablet, on a Mac, even on your phone if you want to model that way. So access to these anywhere on any device is really nice, without having to use a SolidWorks license, like we said. So this one is included in some of the bundles as a design tool.
So the other nice thing about that being included in the bundle does not mean that all the roles in that bundle get assigned to the same person. So you can have somebody in the company using the SolidWorks Connected license and have someone else be assigned the SolidWorks 3D Creator role or the X Design role. So they are not tied together. They can be assigned independently.
Awesome.
So we've kind of touched on this a little bit. I mean, just like there's Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury, you got Dassault Systems that has 3DX Sight, CATIA, SolidWorks, Innovia, NetVibes, Delmia, Simulia, and there's even other brands that were not listed on here. I just didn't want it to be a vomit of logos. But the great thing, once you start getting data on the platform, there's all these other tools that we can leverage and just snap into that 3D platform with your data. So Delmia is there for factory floor simulations and tool cutting. NetVibes is there to allow you to do digging of data and nailing down
research.
Market research, yes.
Yeah.
Simulia, its name sounds pretty self-explanatory, doing high-level simulations. Innovia is there for your PDM backbone. CATIA is there for your designing planes, trains, and automobiles. So
most of these apps run in the cloud, so available anywhere on any device.
Yeah. Now we're not telling you to go out and use CATIA, but in this situation, we're able to leverage aspects of those brands with your data. It may be something as simple as X Studio, which we're going to talk about in a second, or X Sheet Metal. So these are all different apps that we're going to have available for you that you can start leveraging. So
here's another one, just like the X Design, where you may think, well, I've got SolidWorks, why would I need more sheet metal functionality? And it's the same idea. Maybe it's a guy on the shop floor who doesn't need access to a full license of SolidWorks, but he just needs to design some sheet metal parts. For photorealistic rendering, we do have the Visualize tool. That is a locally installed piece of software. This X Studio is an app that runs in the cloud and does cloud rendering. So if you have a marketing person, for example, in your organization that doesn't have a machine maybe that's strong enough to run rendering on their machine, they can take advantage of cloud rendering for speed and for resource purposes.
And anything you create in this is instantly shareable across the organization through your swim community. So what I talked about earlier, like a Facebook type of page for each project you have, you can be posting images and questions and details about that project in a timeline that can be referenced throughout the entire project. These feed directly into it. And so do the markups from any of the other products that you might be using the 3D Play app.
So on the simulation side of things, like we mentioned, you can leverage the Simulia brand. So here, when we're doing simulation on SolidWorks side of things, everything's being solved locally. Now here in Simulia, we're using that Abacus solver, which is the industry standard for doing large, high problem situations. But one of the biggest things for me was the difference in solve times between SolidWorks simulation and Simulia. I had a simulation that I was working with Robert Warren on our team, and it was taking about 3.5 to 4 hours to solve. And once it's solved, it was only about the 75% convergence. Now, we took that same problem and we loaded it up in Structural Performance Engineer, which is that mid-range package, and we were able to solve in about 15 minutes with about 100% convergence. So the solvers are very good. They're very fast. That was solving local to solving local too. You do have the option to say, I'd like to save it to I'd like to render that information out to the cloud, and it will look and see how much it would actually cost to run that and tell you, this is an estimate, how much money it's going to take to actually run that on the platform, and it will use tokens that you pre-purchase.
So, and then another product, if you still need 2D creation, 2D drafting capabilities, you can either connect your existing seats of draft site to the 3D Experience platform with a connector, much like SolidWorks, or there is even a connected 3D Experience draft site product available for you to purchase for new seats. This particular app is locally installed program like SolidWorks would be. Either option you go with, however, would have a PLM services add-in over in the task pane to save and access data to and from the cloud.